Hi everyone. Now we are going to discuss about the asexual method of reproduction. In the previous class we had discussed what is meant by asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction and different methods of asexual reproduction. Now we discuss about the second method of asexual reproduction, that is budding. So budding means here a small outgrowth, it is called as bud. A small outgrowth, an organism develop a small outgrowth on its body, and this small outgrowth detaches from the body and grow as an independent organism. This method of reproduction is what we call budding. So let's see that in this method, a small outgrowth is developed on body of organism, it grows, detaches from parent organism, and develops as new organism So this method of reproduction is what we call budding. See example. Hydra and yeast. They shows budding, that is a method of asexual reproduction. Let's see first one, budding in Hydra. So this is budding in Hydra. So in this method, here this is the body of Hydra, this is the mouth, and these are all tentacles. Tentacles, these are the appendages or locomotory organs of Hydra. They help in the holding of the prey. Now during budding, here a small outgrowth is developed on the parent organism, and this small outgrowth is called as bud. Okay, then this bud, they start keep on growing, they increases its length, ultimately they develop mouth, tentacles, and ultimately they detaches from the parent organism. Once after they detaches from the parent organism, it grows as an independent organism. So this method of reproduction is what we call budding in the case of Hydra. So now let's see one more example, budding in yeast. Now, so look at here, budding in case of yeast. Here it is a single yeast cell. Yeast is a fungus. So here the fungus present in everywhere. Now let's see how this reproduces. So during, again it is just similar to like that of binary fission. Here you see that a membrane on the membrane, it has small outgrowth, a bud like structure is developed, and later on this bud they start developing, it increases its size. At the same time the nucleus undergoes division produces two nuclei. One of the nuclei will be sent to newly formed bud, followed by deposition of cytoplasm around each nucleus. Then ultimately the cell membrane join together and this form a newly formed yeast cell from the parent. Now this undergoes again cell division, produces two more cells. So the newly formed yeast cell, they may still attach to parent cell, or they may separate from the parent cell and can be grow as an independent cell. Okay, so later they will detach from each other, but when you observe under the microscope, you can see a free yeast cell as well as a joint yeast cells. So this method of reproduction is what we call budding. So we have to study two examples. One is Hydra and another one is yeast cell. So after studying about budding, let's move on to third method, that is spore formation. So spore formation. In this method of reproduction, some organisms they reproduce by producing spores. Here spores, whenever they fall on a suitable substratum, means on any substance which having more nutritious to it, these spores develop into new organism. This method of reproduction is called as spore formation. Spore formation mainly observed in the case of lower organism like algae as well as in fungus. Okay, so this is a spore formation. Let's see how spore formation takes place in a fungus. Okay, so next one, spore formation. So in case of spore, is an example of rhizopus. So in the case of rhizopus, it is a fungus. Here, as I said that the fungus they reproduce by spores. These spores are always present in the air. Whenever they get good substratum, they develop into new organism. Here, the rhizopus as a fungus, so it contains a blob-like structure. This one, the blob-like structure, it is called as sporangium. It is called sporangium. It's a blob like structure. This sporangium, it is also called as spore case. Inside the spore case, it produces spores. So here, this sporangium attached to a thread-like structure, it is called as sporangiospores. So they develop spores. So here these spores they are highly resistant to atmosphere. When these spores they get mature inside the sporangium. So when they get mature, the sporangia it get ruptured, that is the spore case rupture. All the spores disperse in the air. So these spores they have a highly protective wall. So whenever these spores they fall on a suitable substratum and grow as an independent organism, as independent fungus. So this method of reproduction is what we call spore formation. This is the third method of asexual reproduction. Now let's move on to another one. Regeneration. In the case of regeneration, here organisms reproduces of in its own kind whenever it get damaged by physical damage, then in such cases it whatever the fragments are obtained, so each part they develop into new organism. This method of reproduction is called as regeneration. So regeneration, once again, it's a type of asexual method in which if any organism get physical damage and produces two or more parts, each part they develop into new organism. This is called regeneration. Say example, planaria. Now see this is a planaria. It's a producer one. It reproduces by regeneration. So here it is the smallest simple multicellular organism, and it has two eye spots. So we are not using the word eyes, we are using the word eye spots. Why? Because it is unable to see the objects clearly. Just it detects it is a primitive organism. It detects only the presence of light. That's why it is called as primitive organism and have eye-like structure called as eye spots. So we are going to study about the planaria in the evolution classes. So here, as it's a primitive organism, means in the evolution you will learn how eyes will develop into a complicated structure we have now. Means whatever the organism, what are the parts we have, these are the complex structure. So once upon a time these were the simple creatures, these were the simple structures. As the time goes on, there is a gradual changes takes place in the body and ultimately develop into structures. This is actually what we call evolution. So here in the evolution classes you will learn about how parts of the organism will develop. Now we are going to not discuss about evolution, we are discussing about how regeneration takes place. You see that these are called eye spots, and in the eye spots, so here if this an organism reproduce, means if it is cut by any physical damage into three parts. Okay, now we have three parts. say this is the cut part of the body, say this is the cut part. Now this organism undergoes physical damage and it forms three different parts. Now here this organism has the ability to produce of its own kind, so because it has regeneration capacity. You see that the cells in this part now they undergo cell division. The cell division and ultimately they form ball-like structure. So here within after forming ball-like structure, the cells which are going to form different parts, they will arrange themselves. See that this part has, say for example, this part doesn't have the lower portion. Now when this undergoes cell division and they form ball-like structure, then the cells which are going to form different parts, they will arrange themselves within the ball and ultimately they take the shape of the organism. Similarly, if you take the middle portion, here it does not contain the, say consider this is the head and this is the tail, it does not have the head and the tail part and having its parts. Okay, again the ball-like structure. So here ultimately then after formation of ball-like structure, the cells which are going to form the different parts, so they will take the position, means they accumulate in the upper position and ultimately they take off head and the lower portion. In this way this organism reproduces by the method of regeneration. Then if this organism does not cut by physical method, then how can it reproduce? Think about it. If it is cut by physical method, then it undergoes regeneration. If it is not cut by any physical method or any damage, then how does it reproduce? Think about and find the answer. So if you get answer, you just send the message that how this organism reproduces. So let me check how many of you will check how this planaria reproduce by other method if not by regeneration. Okay, then this regeneration is possible just because it is a simple multicellular organism. Then why regeneration is not possible in case of higher organism like human beings or any other dog, any other thing? Why? Because you see that it's a very simple organism. If it is cut by physical method, so it produces simple multiplication and they take the shape of organism. But in case of higher organism, you see that you might observe there is a habit of cutting the tail of the dog, especially this one. Doberman, yes, Doberman usually they cut the tail of the dog species. See, once if the tail is cut down, the tail never grows. But you observe the same thing. If you cut the tail of lizard, it will regrow. Means the regeneration it is specified, means some organism they have developed regeneration capacity. So in case of lizard, only the tail can be grown. If you try to capture the tail of the lizard, so the lizard it will detach its tail from its body. It's a defense mechanism. See, if anybody fights, if anybody scares you, then you start fighting against them, right? So because it is your defense mechanism. Similarly, lizard, it has to escape from the prey. If any other organism, they hold the tail of that, it has to escape from that. So what actually do? It will detach from its body so that it can escape. The thing is that the other organism which is holding the tail, it think that, so still it is holding the prey. Means when it detaches from its body, the lizard, you see that at least 30 seconds to 40 seconds, there will be still movement in the lizard, tail of the lizard, and it pretends that the organism still it's in hand. By this way, it can escape. After a few days, again the lizard develops its own tail. But it is not in case of a dog. Means this regeneration capacity, it is limited to lower organism. It is not possible in case of high, because in higher organism there is a complex structure. Here it is a simple multicellular, but in higher organism there is a tissues, cells grouped together form tissues, tissues to organ, organ to organ system, then they form whole body. That is why as degree of organization means cells to tissue, tissues to organ, organs to organ system. This is what we call organization of body. So as the organization of is very complicated, means they have a high degree of organization, hence regeneration is not possible in case of higher organism. So this is about the fourth method of regeneration. Then next one, fragmentation. So it is a similar like of regeneration. This fragmentation means when an organism cut by, when it's grown up, or it will cut itself into 2 or more pieces, or if it is any physical damage takes place, then also the new part they can be grow into a new organism. This is what we call fragment. Means it look like similar to regeneration. The thing is that on maturity the organism cut itself into 2 or more pieces, then each piece they grow as an independent one. If it is not cut by itself, if it is cut by any physical damage, then also they will grow as an independent organism. This method of reproduction is called as fragmentation. So example of fragmentation is Spirogyra. It is an algae. And one more, sea anemone. So this shows fragmentation. Let's see that. This is a Spirogyra. This is Spirogyra. If this organism is cut by, physical method or on its maturity, this organism cut by itself into 2 or more pieces. Say consider this has been cut down into 2 pieces. Then each piece is what we call fragment. Each portion is called as fragment. Each fragment develop into new organism. This is what we call fragmentation. Okay. Then last one, vegetative propagation. So this vegetative propagation, it is also known as vegetative reproduction. vegetative reproduction. So here, what actually vegetative propagation? Vegetative propagation is a method of asexual reproduction. It can be seen mainly in plants. It can be mainly seen in plants. So here, some plants they reproduce without producing gametes. So such method of reproduction is what we call vegetative propagation. So vegetative propagation can be seen in case of potato, money plant, and one more, bryophyllum. Money plant and bryophyllum. Okay. Now let's see potato. I think you have seen potato. If you observe potato, it has many marks on that. It is called as eye spots. Okay, if you are not seen, just take one potato, you just observe. Okay, just hold it and just start observing in all the directions. You see that there will be some marks. Sometimes you might see that a green color sprouts has been appeared from that. Okay, so those marks on the potato, it is what we call eye spots. These eye spots, they are nothing but buds. So whenever the portion of the potato with these eye spots, when you sow into a ground, then they develop into a new potato plant, or you just take a few centimeters depth in the ground and put a potato, then put some water. After few days you see that there will be sprouts will be takes place from that. This is nothing but potato. The potato is going to develop. Second one, money plant. I think you might observe that. So money plant, they can be grown in without a pot also, means it can be grown in a bottle also. Okay, see, let's see that how this money plant grows. Consider this is the money plant. So if we, in order to grow that money plant, so we'll cut some portion of the money plant. Now we'll put it into the soil, or sometimes we'll put into the water bottle. Okay, so if you put it in the bottle, then we have to keep on changing the water frequently, once in a week. Now here we have to observe two things. While cutting the money plant, we have to cut the money plant in a such a way that it at least contain one leaf. Why? Because you see that these are the leaves, they having some, means there will be different, some distance is there. Okay, so here the region, look at this region, the region where the leaves are developed. Okay, these are the nothing but nodal regions. These are called as nodes. Means they have the growing portion. They are nothing but they have a buds. Okay, so here where there is a nodal region, they having some special size. They develop into new leaves. So they are called as buds. This is one node, this is another node, and between the space one node and another node, it is called as internode. This is node and this is another node. Between the two nodes is what we call internode. Now while cutting the money plant, we had to cut the money plant in such a way that it at least contain one leaf. Why? Because if you, after cutting the money plant and having one leaf, you place in the water, then where the leaves are there, that is the nodal region, in that region they start developing roots. It develops roots, so that the roots absorb the nutrient and minerals and supply to the remaining portion of the plant, and it will start growing. So in order to grow a plant, at least it requires one leaf, nothing but buds. So here what actually is, vegetative propagation mainly takes place in the plants, which have buds only, means buds are very essential for growth of the plant. Now instead of budding, if the plant does not contain a single leaf or a bud, means you are going to cut in this portion, and this portion you have placed in the water. It does not contain any leaf at all. If it does not contain any leaf at all, means it does not contain any bud at all. In that case, the plant will die, because it does not develop roots, so that the plant will die. This is an example for money plant. And one more, bryophyllum. So here, this is the leaf of a bryophyllum. So these are notches. Say these are notches of leaf. Say edges. Okay. In the notches of the leaf, it develops buds. So the leaf attached to the plant. Okay. So the buds which are present at the notches of the leaf, they fall, or they detaches from the leaf, fall on the ground and grow as a independent bryophyllum plant. Okay. Or sometimes the whole leaf detaches from the parent plant, and when they are in contact with the soil, these buds develop into new plant. By this way, the bryophyllum plant reproduces with the help of buds. In generally, vegetative propagation, it is a method of asexual reproduction by which a new organism can be produced without involving gametes or a reproductive cell. You might observe, either you take potato or money plant or the bryophyllum plant, so there is no involvement of the reproductive cells. Only the part of the plant has been used in developing new organism. This is what we call vegetative propagation. So similarly, the human beings, they also have adopted certain technique, and it is a technique to grow a new organism without involving reproductive cells, and this technique is called artificial propagation, and that we will study in the next class. Thank you.